Um, I, I, I can't believe this. I'm floored right now. Um, on behalf of my entire family, I would like to thank all of you, not for being here, but for all of the series of events that led to you being here. That being a part of my dad's life, being a part of my family's life. This has been the worst stretch of time in my entire life, and right now I feel incredible. I feel like I'm in heaven. I said that. I don't know. That's a weird. This is incredible. It's Jimmy and Danielle. Holy shit. When my dad died, it was the funeral, and it was horrible. We spent the whole time trying to protect our mom from people coming up to her. It was just an incredibly painful and stressful situation, and this right now is this is incredible. So thank you. All right.
This is before.
There's this event that's so present in my memory. I don't know why it's there, but it's right at the surface. Like it should be one of the most important moments of my life. Like it's a graduation, or a wedding, or a funeral. But it's nothing. It's literally nothing. I was like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years old. My dad was getting a new car, and I was at the dealership with him. I think my mom was there at some point, but this event, this memory, I don't know. In my memory, it's just me and my dad. I remember at some point getting a candy bar or a pop, maybe out of a vending machine, or the car dealer gave it to me out of his desk or something. It's very vague. I remember the interior of the dealership, but only in this very fleeting manner. Everything was so huge. That's gonna be a problem. All right, Christian, you're gonna get the next page ready for me as this goes. So that one, just give me the top one. All right. That's my guy right there. Can we get a round of applause for Christian? This car dealership, I have just the most fleeting and vague memory of it. Everything was big. There were all these wide open spaces. And it felt like we had the entire building to ourselves. Like nobody else was there. Like we weren't supposed to be there. Eventually, my dad and I get in the car and drive away. The memory that is so deeply seared into my consciousness is that drive away from the dealership. I remember sitting in the front seat, the windows were down, and it was just this perfect moment between day and night. It must have been the first time I experienced dusk or twilight or whatever word people tie to that particular sliver of the Earth's rotation that we seem to be in right now. We weren't on the highway, but the road was huge, and we were going fast. I remember the brisk way the air tasted. I remember the cool, metallic colors of the sky. I remember the feeling. My dad driving, me in the passenger seat, heading out into this massive world. Suddenly, everything was beautiful. I don't know from what, but we were free. I've thought about this speech every single day since I was a teenager. There are so many moments, so many memories I could start off with. I could have talked about being 3 or 4, sitting in the second level of the Joe, uncontrollably scream crying while my dad tried desperately to cover my ears after the Red Wings scored. I could have talked about how clueless he was trying to teach me how to throw a punch when I would come home from being bullied at school. I could have talked about when he had cancer, and the night before he went for surgery, I knocked on the door of my parents' room, and I told him he was the coolest person I'd ever known. And how he broke down because I could tell that he knew his son thought that might be the last thing he ever got to say to his dad. I could tell you about the hug we shared after my law school commencement and how that was probably the most meaningful moment of my entire life. I could talk about Lafayette, Coney Island, or playing football on the beach with him and my brothers, or the time together outside of a castle in the south of France. Anyway. My dad loved being Carl Manoogian so much. He knew that his life was special, and he never took that for granted. He built an entire world around his orbit. When he connected with someone, which happened quite often, it was like that person just organically became a part of his life permanently. People gravitated toward him because he made them feel important. But they stayed around him because, simply, he brought the absolute best vibes. One time when we were teenagers, a kid I was pretty close friends with from my baseball team openly told me that the only reason he hung out with me was because my dad was so cool. Zach Carroll. I've never been in any state of denial about the fact that most of the people I grew up being friends with only came around for my dad. I know there are a good number of them here. Yeah. He built this world around his orbit, and he loved living in that world. He loved all the people in that world, the people in his industry, people that he worked with, there's so many of you here, and it was such a joy for him to go to work. It was such a joy for him to be on the phone with you late at night talking about, I have no idea, weird mortgage jargon, but it was so much fun for him to be at our games with 2 cell phones talking to multiple of you at the same time about mortgages. He loved you. The guys in his golf league, of whom have already spoken tonight, that was cool. He loved that golf league. His sisters and the people in their lives, which comprise about 65% of this population right now. His in-laws, his friends, my friends, Alex's friends. The people that came to do work at the house. His guy at the gas station at 14 in Farmington. Boris, the guy he bought meat from. He embraced us all and he made it clear that we all mattered to him. We were his hobby. The ongoings of our lives were his news. We were his world. And he was the patriarch of that world. So many people came to him when they were down, and he loved being there for them. It made him so proud to know that the people that he loved felt the love that he had for them. This is where I stopped last time. My dad loved my mom so much. So unbelievably much. He told me so many times that finding her and marrying her was the greatest thing that ever happened in his life. She was everything to him. They used to make out in the kitchen all the time. It was like,
Recently.
yeah, no, like recently. Like, very recently. And it was like, what the fuck, dude, stop. Please. But yeah, he came home for dinner every single night of my life. My dad lived for my mom's cooking.
We all did.
Hell yeah, we all did. He would grill the steaks or the chicken, while my mom made like 4 different things at once at the island. And they would listen to the same 6 CDs that were in the stereo since we moved into our house. And we would have ridiculous 5-course dinners every night, and we all got fat, and it didn't matter because we're so good looking. They loved shopping for furniture together. They made Saturday night outs out of going to look for plants for the backyard. They were constantly remodeling the house. They never stopped living like a couple in their first year of marriage. While I'm talking about my mom, I can't gloss over how much my dad loved her family. My dad was weird in these incredibly good ways. His favorite color was purple, which, Jimmy, were the tablecloths on purpose? They were? It's amazing. He loved shopping for clothes. Rick touched on this. His greatest passion in life was shopping for clothes and finding a good deal, and he had absolutely no sense of the retail market and what sale prices were and how much things actually cost. But one way that he was incredibly weird in an incredibly good way was that he absolutely adored his in-laws. If my dad were here today to quantify some of these things for us, I'm confident that he would say my Nana Margot, his mother-in-law, was his favorite person that he ever encountered in his entire life. His wife's brother, my Uncle Mark, was his best friend. He revered my Baba. My dad was smart. This part's for me and him. We battled so much intellectually. It got ugly sometimes. Not super ugly. But we pretty routinely screamed at each other. He knew my strengths. He knew my weaknesses. But most of all, he knew how to push my buttons. I think that he thought I was smarter than him. Wait, I messed that up. I think that he thought that I thought that I was smarter than him. I never got a chance to tell this to him, so I'm going to do it right now. My dad was the smartest person that I've ever known. He saw the world for what it was, but he chose to see the good in it. He saw people for what they were, but he chose to see the good in them. I see a lot of bad. I'm going to try to do better, Dad. My dad loved to party. He loved to dance so badly. Yo, my dad was so bad at dancing. Why didn't any of you ever tell him that? The worst thing that I could say about my experience being his son was simply the embarrassment I felt whenever he started dancing. Truly, that's the only negative thing that I have to say. But Yeah, he loved to party. He loved to party. It was inherent to his nature. We should all party more. It would serve us well. He loved being a dad to anybody that would let him take that role in their life. But most importantly, to me and my brothers. Corey, he believed in you so much. He saw so much greatness in you. You made him so proud. Behind the plate or in your white coat, I think his greatest joy in life was watching you succeed. I really do. His story ended when you graduated from med school. He died in peace. But I think if he's been watching down on us over the last 7 months, the proudest moment of the entire history of his consciousness would be watching how you've stepped up for me, how you've become the big brother. I think he always knew that that's how this would have to go. And you've made him proud. Alec, you're his mini-me. You saw it from day one. He was never shy about the fact that you were the one that he saw himself in. He made you his partner in crime. No father and son that I know have had the type of day-to-day relationship that you and him shared. As much as he's been there for you, which is a lot, you've been there for him. You were his live-in best friend. In a weird way, I think you were this metaphysical treasure. A mirror to reflect his majesty back to him. Dad was the best friend. Logically, that should mean that he couldn't have a friend like him. But you kind of override that logic. I mentioned that my dad liked to party. So, a few years ago, he came and crashed my friend Gabe's wedding. He was supposed to be picking me and Ryan up, but he couldn't help himself. He made a grand entrance during the last 15 minutes of music, and did his thing, and commanded the room, and everyone was lifted. It was just this brief, glorious moment with so many of my friends that he watched grow up. I felt so close with all of them, watching how much of a presence we all were in each other's lives. When we left, we got in his BMW, put the top down, blasted Led Zeppelin, and drove to Greens. Ryan sat in the back seat. Dad drove, and there I was, sitting in the passenger seat, heading out into this massive world with them. I remember the brisk way the air tasted and the cool metallic color of the suburban night. Everything was beautiful. We were free. It was the best moment of my entire life. I love you, Dad. I'll do my best. Go Tigers.